What is going on, guys? It is Wrestlelamia here, back with another video. Raw is live as the WWE prepares for Money in the Bank. Join us now as Wrestlelamia analyzes Raw and looks at the wildest news stories and rumors you need to know, including how the WWE is able to run its wrestling shows despite a ban on non-essential businesses, the XFL is bankrupt, and WWE fans shit on WWE's pandemic PSA. As always, we won't waste your time recapping the matches, but we will look at the good, the bad, and the downright ugly from last night's show. So be sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell for daily wrestling videos. But let's waste no further time and get straight into the good. There's number 1, challenge accepted. Raw started off well with a good interview by Drew McIntyre, as well as highlights from Drew defeating the Big Show last week. They didn't waste any time building up a new opponent for McIntyre, sending United States champion Andrade and Zelina Vega out to challenge him. WWE did a great job reminding fans of the backstory between McIntyre and Andrade, not only beating McIntyre for the NXT Championship, but putting him on the shelf for 6 months. McIntyre managed to get his revenge though. Number 2, Aleister's abilities. Aleister Black has an amazing ability to get opponents over, even when they lose to him. Black's match with NXT's Oney Lorcan saw Lorcan hold his own for much of the match. The only drawback to the match was Jerry Lawler comparing Oney Lorcan to Cesaro, who has been trapped in the mid-card for far too long. Unfortunately, Black's post-match interview sounded weak as he'd given plenty of detailed promos and doesn't need to sound like a caveman. Number 3 is Zelina Vega, the best WWE manager right now. The WWE doesn't have many managers like it used to, so it's not much to claim you're the best manager in the company. Nevertheless, there's much to be said for Zelina Vega. She's great on the microphone, she knows how to add to matches without taking away from in-ring action as seen last night, and she's also great on commentary, showing another dimension. She's easy on the eyes too, which makes her the total package when it comes to managers. Number 4, a fearsome faction. Vega is quietly building an impressive looking faction anchored by Andrade and featuring rising stars such as Austin Theory and Angel Garza. If the WWE takes its time building this faction up rather than feeding them to babyfaces, they could have a bright future on Raw. Although Vega's crew was on hand to assist Andrade against Drew McIntyre, they didn't look helpless against the champion when they interfered, something that could have easily happened. Number 5, some good promos. As fans know, a good promo can get a wrestler over and or build up interest in an upcoming match. Last night's show featured some excellent hype promos by Becky Lynch and Charlotte Flair, 2 of the best talkers in the WWE, as they boasted of their past accomplishments and looked towards future opponents. As mentioned earlier, Drew McIntyre's promo was good, as was his response to Vega's challenge for her man Andrade. Number 6, building up the undercard. Last night's Raw didn't feature a number of main event level matches, but it wasn't the squash fest it's been over the previous weeks at the Performance Center. While it's always difficult to get excited when the WWE features its undercard stars, largely because the promotion often gives them a brief push only to toss them aside. If you're unsure who we're talking about, be sure to check out our recent video on it. But last night's show featured a number of fresh faces who could liven up the Red brand. We just hope Vince doesn't tire of his new toys and throw them out for whomever catches his eye from NXT. Number 7, no squash matches. Last night, the WWE made the wise move of putting inactive competitors to face its top stars. While there was no doubt who would win between No Way Jose and Bobby Lashley, pitting Lashley against a name opponent rather than local talent did 2 things. It gave Lashley a meaningful win, and it gave No Way Jose some television time, even if it was as a jobber. There's no need for local talent to show up on WWE television as the company has more stars on its roster than they know what to do with, but other matches such as Oney Lorcan vs Aleister Black and the Viking Raiders vs Ricochet and Cedric Alexander were not only competitive, but helped make the losers look strong. Number 8, Asuka is just wonderful. Now we don't even know what she's saying half the time, but she really gives her matches and her television time some real delight to fans. She's absolutely bonkers and we love it. Asuka should be a strong contender for the Money in the Bank ladder match, but unfortunately we might see Shayna Baszler win it this time around, hoping to do a little damage control from her loss at WrestleMania. But that was the good. What about the bad? Is number 1, Rollins in the main event picture again? Okay, we're not taking anything away from Rollins, as he is still a main event level superstar, but he just lost to Kevin Owens at WrestleMania, so with that win record, he's managed to position himself as Drew McIntyre's next challenger? We really could have seen something new, fresh and exciting with Jinder Mahal returning to the WWE. Mahal would return from injury and square up to his former 3MB tag mate. And we can all hear you groan in the comments down below, but again, it's something new. This feud between Rollins and Drew McIntyre could have waited until after SummerSlam. Number 2, Big Girls Don't Cry. Every time the WWE goes to remind fans of its women's revolution, such as last night's Raw which only featured 3 women's qualifying matches for the Money in the Bank, but several others, it does something downright stupid like the angle where Shayna Baszler crushed Sarah Logan, knocking her out of the match as the former Riot Squad member was unable to compete. And we get the WWE wants to build a Queen of Spades back into the main event title picture, but they're not only sacrificing their women's division in doing so, they're going out of their way to make Baszler's victims look pathetic. Having Logan lose by match stoppage was a good move by itself, but having Logan bawling her eyes out after the match due to the pain ruined her previous push as a battle-hardened member of the Riot Squad. The WWE needs to stop with this bad booking immediately, or Baszler will have no credible opponents. And number 2, don't burn out Drew. Like SmackDown, Raw has many performers, but not many main event wrestlers capable of looking like worthy opponents for the WWE's 2 World Championships. Although it's good that the WWE is pushing Drew McIntyre as a strong babyface, they need to use him less now that he's been established as a badass. Now we're not saying that Drew should show up every 3 months, but the WWE can't have him defeat the Raw roster over the next 6 weeks and expect fans to stay interested in him. But that was the good, the bad. What about the downright ugly? Well, Raw after WrestleMania is supposed to set up new programs and introduce new stars, but last week's show was a lame duck compared to this week's show, which started the build up for the Money in the Bank and set the stage for Drew McIntyre's new challenger. Last night's show seemed much different than typical Raw, as it featured a number of up-and-coming stars that put on excellent matches but didn't provide much star power. The abundance of women's matches was a gutsy move, and only the ratings will see if it pays off. Either the WWE booked last night's show on the fly, or they're attempting to go with a different direction, focusing on building new stars and jump-starting performers such as the Viking Raiders, who have been drifting aimlessly of late. That was the good, the bad and the downright ugly. Let's move on to the news, as our first story looks at the WWE given a government order to continue. If you're wondering how the WWE is running live shows from the Performance Center when the state of Florida currently is prohibiting anyone from working except for essential businesses, Pro Wrestling Sheet's Ryan Saturn reported today that Orange County Mayor revealed that the WWE has deemed an essential service. Initially, there was a review that was done and they were not initially deemed an essential business. With some conversations with the governor's office regarding the governor's order, they were deemed an essential business, so therefore they were allowed to remain open. One of the more interesting aspects of the press conference was when a reporter asked about the mayor about a WWE employee who was tested positive for coronavirus. In terms of the specifics associated with the wrestling personality who tested positive, I don't know any of the details of that, obviously, because of HYPAA laws, but that's like a little family. A small family of professional athletes that wrestle, and if one of my family members tested positive in my house, that would be concerning to me. We would have to make some provisions in our house to make sure that the rest of us do not get infected. So I would assume that from a business perspective, the WWE is doing that type of analysis of its own family. At this point, there's been no mention of how professional wrestling qualifies an essential service, but it should be noted that Florida Governor Ron DeSantis is a member of the Republican Party, the same party as WWE Hall of Famer Donald Trump. We'll let you put the pieces together. Next up, wrestlers having no choice. Given the current pandemic and the dangers of contracting it and bringing it back home, it's no surprise some WWE superstars are uncertain about whether they want to travel to the Performance Center. Sources states mood at the PC today is that of uncertainty. Many know they shouldn't be there but realize this is their job. And as unfortunate as it may sound, they can all pull out one by one and the show will still go on. WWE will always have a big enough roster to continue. And the only way WWE superstars will be able to fight is to organize themselves into a union or something similar. Will it happen? Probably not, given superstars' past refusals to stand up for themselves. While there are likely wrestlers who want to entertain the fans, Wrestlelamia can't help but wonder how many superstars feel they have no choice but to wrestle. Next up, fans shit on WWE for a pandemic PSA. The WWE is already being criticized for continuing to run its wrestling shows when most of the sports and entertainment world are currently shut down. On 13th April, the WWE released a public service announcement featuring Charlotte Flair, Drew McIntyre and Kofi Kingston recommending fans stay at home and practice social distancing to protect themselves from the current pandemic. However, with the WWE continuing to run shows and potentially putting its performers at risk, members of the WWE Universe fired back on social media, accusing the company of not practicing what they preached. Comments range from fans demanding the WWE suspend operations to others encouraging wrestlers to walk out. Do you think the WWE's pandemic PSA is hypocritical? Let us know in the comments down below. And lastly, the XFL files for bankruptcy and could be being sold. The second version of the XFL is no more, with Vince McMahon not only cancelling the Football League's 2020 and 2021 season, but now filing for Chapter 11 bankruptcy protection. According to Wrestling Inc.'s Douglas Canavan, the bankruptcy filings reveal that WWE owns 23.5% of Class B shares in the now defunct league. McMahon owns all the Class A shares. The filings also reveal the XFL lists between $10 million and $50 million in liabilities and the same in assets, and that the league owes more than $14 million to its 25 largest unsecured creditors, including 7 of the league's 8 head coaches. Like nearly all sports and entertainment organizations, the XFL was devastated by the ongoing health crisis. The Hollywood Reporter's Rick Porter noted, a league source told The Hollywood Reporter that the XFL wants to minimize the value of its assets in order to pay creditors and has begun the process of seeking a buyer. No word on who might be interested in purchasing the XFL, but it should be noted the league was performing well overall. There's no telling whether the league could have stayed in business in the first season, but things looked hopeful. Whether or not someone is interested in purchasing an unproven football league during a time of economic uncertainty remains to be seen. But there you have it guys, the good, the bad and the downright ugly from the 13th April edition of Raw, as well as the wildest wrestling news stories and rumours you need to know. What did you think of this week's show? Let us know in the comments down below, subscribe if you haven't already, follow us on Instagram and Twitter, and I'll see you next time with some more wrestling content.